20 years after the Battle of Cathora Prime, Captain Lee Dung stood in the Hall of Remembrance on New Cathora Station. The space station orbited the crystal world like a jewel in the darkness, its gleaming corridors filled with beings from 100 different species. Humans walked alongside Zentari traders. Villani engineers worked with Carillion scientists. Children of mixed heritage played games that would have been impossible before the Alliance was born. But Lee had not come here to admire the success of interspecies cooperation. He had come to see the statue. It stood in the center of the hall, carved from a single piece of crystal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The figure was unmistakably human, but it was surrounded by wolf-like beings, all looking toward the stars with expressions of hope and determination. The inscription at the base was written in 12 different languages. Lai read the standard version: Hanwu, Skybrother, Packheart, Unforgotten. He died so that strangers might become family. Impressive, isn't it? Lee turned to see an elderly Villani approaching. The alien was clearly ancient, his gray fur marked with the scars of many battles. But his yellow eyes were still bright with intelligence and humor. "I'm Nemi," the old wolf person said in perfect standard. "I was Hanwu's student, his friend, his pack brother, Captain Lee Dong." "Earth Defense Force," Lee replied. "I'm here to negotiate a formal alliance between Earth and the Villani Confederation." "Ah, yes. Your government has finally decided we're worth talking to." Nemi's tone was amused rather than bitter. "Only took them 20 years to admit we exist." Lee felt uncomfortable under the alien's gaze. Everyone in the Earth Defense Force knew the story of Cathora Prime. How a disgraced commander had single-handedly created the most powerful alliance in frontier space. How Earth had missed the chance to be part of something extraordinary because they were too proud to admit their mistakes. "I've read the files," Lee said. "About Commander Hanwu. About what happened here, have you?" "Which files? The ones where Earth calls him a hero? Or the real ones where they exiled him for trying to save lives?" Lee said nothing. There was nothing to say. The truth was too well documented to deny. Nemi walked slowly around the statue, his hand trailing along the crystal base. "He used to stand right here, you know. This valley is where we first met, where he saved my life, where everything began. Reports say he went against direct orders. The reports say many things. Most of them are lies designed to make your people feel better about abandoning him." Nemi stopped in front of the statue and looked up at the crystal face. "But you want to know what really happened? Why your governments are so eager to make treaties with us now?" Lee nodded. "Come with me," Nemi said. "Let me show you something your files don't mention." They took a shuttle down to the planet's surface, landing in what had once been the Great Valley. Now it was a memorial park filled with crystal trees that sang in the wind and fountains that reflected the light of the twin suns. But at the center of the park was something that made Lee catch his breath. A second statue, this one smaller and more intimate. It showed a human figure kneeling beside a wounded Villani, sharing food and water. "This is where it really started," Nemi explained. "Not with grand speeches or military strategies, with one person helping another because it was the right thing to do." They walked through the memorial gardens, past markers that told the story of the 3-week war. Lee read the names of the fallen from both sides, Villani who had died defending their homes, the Gemini soldiers who had been buried with honor despite being invaders. "Hanwu insisted on that," Nemi said, noticing Lee's surprise. "He said that even enemies deserved respect and death. It was a very human idea. We've learned to appreciate it." They stopped at a small building near the edge of the memorial. Inside, Lee found himself in a museum dedicated to human culture. Art, music, literature, philosophy, all the things that made humanity unique in the galaxy. "This is what your commander really gave us," Nemi explained. "Not just military tactics or technology. He gave us the idea that family isn't about blood or species. It's about choice, about deciding to care for others even when it costs you everything." Lee studied the exhibits in silence. Poems written by human children on distant colonies. Paintings that captured the beauty of Earth's lost forests. Music that spoke of hope and loss and the endless search for meaning. The hegemony conquered. With fear, Nemi continued, they ruled through strength and intimidation. But Hanwoo conquered through love. He showed us that there was another way to live, another way to build something that would last. They returned to the space station as the twin suns were setting behind the Crystal Mountains. The Hall of Remembrance was busier now, filled with visitors from across the Alliance. Lee watched as human children played with Vellani cubs there, laughter echoing off the crystal walls. "So," Nemi said as they stood once again before the main statue, "what will you tell your superiors when you return to Earth?" Lee thought about the question for a long moment. He had come here with a simple mission: negotiate trade agreements and military cooperation, standard diplomatic work. But he was leaving with something much more valuable: an understanding of what humanity could become when it chose love over fear. "I'll tell them the truth," Lee said finally. "That Hanwoo didn't just save this world. He showed the galaxy what humans are capable of when they stop thinking about politics and start thinking about family." Nemi smiled, his canine features softening with approval. Good, because that's the only truth worth telling. As Lee prepared to return to Earth, he carried with him copies of the Vellani historical records. Not the sanitized versions that Earth Command preferred, but the real stories told by those who had lived through the events. The story of a human who had been forgotten by his own people but remembered by strangers who became family. The story of how one person's sacrifice had changed the balance of power in an entire galaxy. Most importantly, the story of how the best of humanity wasn't found in its weapons or technology, but in its capacity to inspire others to become more than they ever thought possible. Back on Earth, the politicians would debate trade routes and military cooperation. They would argue about jurisdiction and sovereignty and all the other abstractions that governments use to avoid talking about real issues. But in the frontier territories, something much more important was happening. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. Children were growing up with friends from dozens of different worlds. The galaxy was becoming a place where family was defined not by biology but by choice, and at the center of it all was the memory of a man who had died protecting strangers, and in doing so had taught the universe the true meaning of the phrase humanity. Fuck yeah. It wasn't about human superiority. It wasn't about conquest or domination. It was about the uniquely human ability to see family where others saw only aliens, to choose love where others chose fear, to plant seeds of hope in the darkest soil and nurture them until they grew into something beautiful. The wolves remembered their sky brother, and through their memory, Hanwoo's legacy spread to every corner of known space, not as a conqueror or a politician, but as a teacher who had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victories come from the simple decision to care about others. In the end, that was the lesson that mattered. Not the tactics or the technology, but the heart. The willingness to sacrifice everything for those you love. Even if they're not the same species as you, the galaxy had learned to be a little more human, and humanity had learned what it truly is. Meant to reach for the stars, the pack remembered. The stars sang, and somewhere in the crystal forests of Kethera Prime, the wind carried the echo of ancient howls that spoke of love and loss, and the bonds that make strangers into family forever, and always unforgotten. The morning sun rose over the jungle moon of Kepler-4 for to be, casting long shadows through the thick canopy of alien trees. In the human settlement of New Busan, the day began like any other. Mining equipment hummed to life, workers prepared for another shift, and children played in the safe zones near the colony buildings. But everyone knew the truth that hung over their small world like a dark cloud. Something deadly lived in the jungle, something that had been killing them one by one for over a year now. Hyun-Woo Kim stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out at the green wall of jungle that surrounded their home. He was a tall man, with graying hair and tired eyes. As the senior mining engineer, he carried the weight of keeping everyone safe. The responsibility felt heavier each day. "Dad, can I go explore the creek today?" Hyun-Woo turned to see his 8-year-old daughter, Biora, tugging at his work shirt. She had bright, curious eyes and a smile that could light up any room. Her backpack was already on her shoulders, and she held a small net for catching the colorful fish that lived in the nearby streams. "Not today, little one," Hyun-Woo said, kneeling down to her level. Stay close to home. You know the rules. Face fell. But Dad, I want to see the purple flowers that bloom near the waterfall. Janae saw them yesterday and said they were beautiful. Maybe tomorrow, Han-Wu said, though he knew tomorrow would bring the same answer. The jungle was not safe for children. It was not safe for anyone. A loud crash came from the mining area. Han-Wu stood up quickly and saw workers running toward the main building. His heart began to race. Another attack. Tae-Min Park, the chief security officer, came running up to them. He was a stocky man with scars on his hands from years of military service. His face was pale and his breathing was heavy. Han-Wu, we need to talk, Taemin said, glancing at Bora. Right now. Han-Wu looked at his daughter. Go find Dr. So-young. Tell her I said you can help her with the plant samples. Today, Bora nodded and ran off toward the medical building. She loved spending time with Dr. So-young, who always had interesting stories about the strange plants and animals they found on their world. Once Bora was gone, Taemin grabbed Han-Wu's arm. It hit the night shift again. Mining Station 7. 3 workers are missing. Han-Wu felt his stomach drop. Missing or dead? We don't know yet. The equipment is destroyed. Claw marks through solid titanium, just like before. Whatever this thing is, it's getting bolder. They walked quickly toward the mining station. The damage was worse than anything they had seen before. Heavy machinery that weighed several tons had been thrown around like toys. Deep claw marks scored. The metal walls and the entire work area looked like a war zone. It's getting stronger, Taemin said quietly. Or maybe angrier. Dr. So-young Choi arrived with her medical kit and scanner. She was a young woman with sharp eyes who served as both the colony doctor and their only expert on the local wildlife. She had studied the creature's attack patterns for months, trying to understand what they were dealing with. Any signs of the workers? She asked, checking her scanner for life signs. Nothing yet, Taemin replied. But look at this. He pointed to a set of tracks in the soft earth near the station. They were huge, easily twice the size of any earth. But these tracks were different from the others they had found. They seemed to glow with a faint silver light. I've never seen tracks like these before, So-young said, taking pictures with her scanner. The bioluminescence is new. It's like the creature is changing. Changing how? Han-Wu asked. I don't know. But something is different about this attack. Look at the claw marks. They're deeper, more precise, almost like it was trying to send us a message. The 3 of them stood in silence, looking at the destruction around them. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of the jungle, strange bird calls, the rustling of leaves, and something else, something that made their skin crawl. A low growling sound echoed through the trees. It was deep and powerful, unlike anything that should exist. In nature, the sounds seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. We need to evacuate, Taemin said. I'm calling the colonial authority. This settlement is lost. No, Han-Wu said firmly. This is our home. We've put too much work into this place. To just give up? Then what do you suggest? Taemin shot back. We've tried everything. Motion sensors, electric fences, armed patrols. Nothing works. This thing kills whenever it wants, however it wants. We hunt it, Han-Wu said. We find it and we end this. So-young shook her head. We don't even know what it is. The colonists call it the White Death because of its pale fur, but I've never seen it clearly. It moves too fast, attacks too quickly. For all we know, it's not even a natural animal. Then we learn, Han-Wu said. We study it, track it, understand it, and then we kill it. The growling sound came again, closer this time. All 3 of them instinctively moved closer together. In the shadows between the trees, something moved, something large and pale, watching. Them with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. It's here, Taemin whispered, slowly reaching for his weapon. But when they looked again, the shadows were empty. Whatever had been watching them was gone, leaving only the feeling of being hunted. The jungle fell silent around them, as if every living thing was holding its breath. Back at the medical building, Biora was helping So-young, organize plant samples, when she heard the adults talking outside. She pressed her ear to the window and listened to their worried voices. The creature they feared so much was still out there, still hunting. But as Biora looked out at the jungle, she didn't feel fear like the adults did. Instead, she felt something else. Something that made her want to draw pictures of a great white cat with sad, only eyes. She didn't know why, but she felt sorry for the creature in the jungle. Maybe it was just as scared as they were. It was just trying to find its way home, just like her family had when they first came to this world. The adults continued their worried discussion outside, making plans to hunt and kill the creature that terrorized their settlement. But Biora continued to stare into the jungle, wondering if there might be another way to solve their problem. Something was coming to New Busan, something that would change everything they knew about the creature in the jungle. And somehow, Biora knew that she would be right in the middle of it all. The storm came without warning, as storms often did on Kepler 442b. Dark clouds rolled across the sky like a blanket, blocking out the sun and turning day into night. Lightning flashed through the jungle canopy, followed by thunder that shook the ground beneath their feet. In the colony, people rushed to secure their equipment and get indoors. The weather on their world could be dangerous, with winds strong enough to knock down trees and rain that fell like bullets from the sky. Biora stood at her bedroom window, watching the storm approach. Her father had left with the hunting party 2 days ago, and she missed him terribly. The house felt empty without his voice and his gentle presence. Biora, come away from the window, called Mrs. Park, the neighbor who was watching her while her father was away. The storm is getting stronger. But Biora couldn't stop looking at the jungle. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her chest, like a heavy weight pressing down on her heart. The sad cat was in trouble. The hunting party was getting closer to the ruins, and she knew that meant danger for everyone. I have to help, she whispered to herself. When Mrs. Park went to the kitchen to prepare lunch, Biora quietly slipped out the back door. She grabbed her small backpack and filled it with a water bottle, some crackers, and her navigation device. Her father had taught her how to use it, though he had made her promise never to go into the jungle alone. The first drops of rain were starting to fall as Biora reached the edge of the settlement. She looked back at her home, feeling scared but determined. The adults didn't understand. They thought the creature was just a monster, but Biora knew better. It was lonely and afraid, just like she was when her father was away. She pressed the button on her navigation device and started walking toward the jungle. The device would guide her to the ruins, where she somehow knew she needed to go. The rain got heavier as she walked deeper into the alien forest. The trees were tall and strange, with leaves that glowed softly in the dim light. Usually Biora would have been amazed by the beauty around her, but now she could only think about reaching the ruins before something terrible happened. After an hour of walking, her navigation device started making strange sounds. The screen flickered and went dark. She pressed the buttons, but nothing happened. The device was broken. Biora looked around and realized she was completely lost. The jungle looked the same in every direction, and the storm was getting worse. Rain poured down through the leaves, soaking her clothes and making her shiver with cold. "Daddy," she whispered, but her voice was lost in the sound of the storm. She tried to remember the way back to the colony, but everything looked different. In the rain, the paths she thought she had followed were nowhere to be seen. Panic started to rise in her chest as she realized how much trouble she was in. Lightning flashed overhead, followed by a crash of thunder that made her jump. She found a large tree with thick roots and crawled underneath for shelter. Space was dry, but she was already soaked and shivering. As night fell, the storm grew even worse. The wind howled through the trees, and strange sounds echoed from the darkness around her. Biora curled up in a ball, trying to stay warm and trying not to cry. She thought about her father, somewhere out there in the jungle with his hunting party. She thought about the sad cat, alone and afraid, like she was. Most of all, she wished she had listened to her father and stayed home where it was safe. Hours passed. Storm raged on, and Biora grew colder and more frightened. She was just a little girl lost in an alien jungle in the middle of the night. Every sound made her think of dangerous creatures or things that might want to hurt her. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy, careful footsteps moving through the forest toward her hiding place. Biora held her breath, trying to make herself as small as possible. The footsteps stopped right outside her shelter. Through the tangle of roots, she could see a pale shape in the darkness. Two amber eyes looked down at her, glowing softly in the night. It was the creature. The White Death, the monster that had killed 17 people and terrorized her colony for over a year. Bara should have been terrified. She should have screamed or tried to run. But instead, she found herself looking into those amber eyes and seeing something that the adults had missed. The creature wasn't angry or hungry. It was curious. And maybe, just maybe, it was as lonely as she was. "Hello," Biora whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. The creature tilted its massive head, studying her. It was even bigger than she had imagined, with pure white fur that seemed to glow in the darkness. Its claws were as long as her fingers, and its teeth were sharp enough to cut through metal, but it didn't attack. Instead, it lowered its great head and sniffed at her gently. Its breath was warm against her face, and she could smell something like flowers and old stone. "You're not scary," Biora said, feeling braver. "You're just sad." The creature made a soft sound, almost like a cat purring. It stepped back and lay down near her shelter, its body blocking the wind and rain. Its amber eyes never left her face, but there was no threat in them. It's only curiosity and something that might have been loneliness. Bara was so tired and cold that she couldn't think clearly anymore. Her fear was fading, replaced by exhaustion and the strange comfort of the creature's presence. Without really thinking about it, she crawled out from under the tree roots. The creature watched her approach, but didn't move. When she was close enough, Biora reached out and touched its fur. It was softer than she had expected, and incredibly warm. The creature made that purring sound again, as if it was happy to be touched gently for the first time in years. "Can I sleep here?" Biora asked, as if the creature could understand her. The creature shifted slightly, making a comfortable space beside its warm body. Biora curled up against its side, feeling safer than she had all day. The creature's steady breathing and the warmth of its fur made her feel protected from the storm, as she drifted off to sleep. Biora felt the creature's great head settle gently over her, shielding her from the rain. Its amber eyes continued to watch the darkness around them, alert for any danger that might threaten the small human who had shown it kindness. For the first time in over a year, the creature that everyone called the White Death was not alone. And for the first time in her life, Biora was sleeping peacefully in the jungle, protected by the very monster that everyone else feared. The storm raged on through the night, but neither the lost girl nor her unexpected guardian was afraid anymore. The morning sun broke through the storm clouds, casting golden light across the jungle floor. Biora woke slowly, feeling warm and safe. For a moment, she forgot where she was, and she opened her eyes and saw white fur beneath her cheek. The creature was still there, its amber eyes watching the forest around them. When it noticed she was awake, it made a soft rumbling sound that felt like a greeting. Biora sat up and rubbed her eyes, amazed that she had slept so peacefully in the jungle. "Good morning," she said to the creature, as if talking to a friend. The creature turned its great head toward her and made another gentle sound. Then it stood up carefully, making sure not to knock Biora over. It was even more magnificent in the daylight, with muscles that rippled under its pale fur and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. In the distance, Bara could hear voices calling her name. The search party had found her trail. "Biora! Biora! Where are you?" She recognized her father's voice, filled with worry and fear. The creature heard it too and tensed, its ears flicking toward the sound. "It's okay," Biora said, placing her small hand on the creature's leg. "That's my daddy. He won't hurt you." But the creature was already backing away, disappearing into the thick jungle like a ghost. By the time the search party reached the clearing, it was gone. Hyenwu burst through the trees, followed by Timon and several other colonists. When he saw Biora standing alone and unharmed, he ran to her and swept her into his arms. "Biora, thank God you're safe. What were you doing out here? You could have been killed." "I'm sorry, Daddy," Biora said, hugging him tight. "I was trying to help the sad cat." "The sad cat?" Taman asked, looking around nervously. "Did you see the creature?" Nodded. "It kept me warm all night. It's not mean like everyone thinks. It's just lonely." The adults exchanged worried glances. Taman examined the ground around where Biora had been standing. The creature's tracks were everywhere, along with clear signs that it had spent the night in the area. "This is impossible," Taman muttered. "The creature should have killed her." "Maybe it wasn't hungry," one of the other searchers suggested. "No," So-Young said, kneeling down to examine the tracks more closely. "Look at these prints. See how they're arranged? Creature was protecting her, not stalking her." She pointed to the way the tracks circled the area where Biora had slept, like a guard walking patrol. There were also signs that the creature had chased away other jungle animals during the night. "This changes everything," So-Young continued. "The creature isn't just a mindless killer. It has the ability to recognize innocence, to make choices about who to protect and who to attack." Hyanwu was still holding Biora tight, not wanting to let her go. "Need to get back to the colony. We can figure out what this means later." But So-Young was already walking toward the ancient ruins, which were visible through the trees. "The creature was leading us here, don't you see? Everything that's happened has been connected to these ruins." The ruins were more impressive up close than they had seemed from a distance. Tall stone pillars covered in strange symbols rose from the jungle floor, surrounding a circular platform that seemed to hum with energy. The symbols glowed faintly in the morning light, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "I've never seen anything like this," Taman said, approaching one of the pillars cautiously. So-Young pulled out her scanner and began taking readings. "The energy signatures are off the charts. This isn't just ancient architecture. Kind of advanced technology." Dayun, who had been monitoring radio frequencies, suddenly looked up from her equipment. "The signals are getting stronger, much stronger. It's like the ruins are waking up." Biora wiggled out of her father's arms and walked toward the central platform. The symbols seemed to respond to her presence, glowing brighter as she approached. "Biora, stay back," Hyanwu warned. But Biora was already climbing onto the platform. The moment her feet touched the ancient stone, the entire ruin complex came alive. The symbols blazed with light, and a low humming sound filled the air. Suddenly, images began to appear in the air above the platform. Holographic projections showing scenes from long ago. The colonists watched in amazement as the story of the ruins unfolded before them. They saw a race of tall, graceful beings with large eyes and pale skin. These aliens had built the ruins thousands of years ago as a sanctuary for their children. The images showed young alien beings playing and learning in the safety of the ruins, protected by mechanical guardians that looked like great cats. "It's a nursery," So-Young breathed. "The entire complex was designed to protect children." Images continued, showing how the alien race had faced some terrible disaster. They had uploaded the consciousness of their children into the ruins' computer systems, hoping to preserve them until they could return. But the return never came. One guardian remained, programmed to protect the sleeping children until the end of time, but centuries of isolation had driven it mad with loneliness. It had forgotten its original purpose and began to see all living beings as threats to its sacred charge. "The creature isn't evil," So-Young said, finally understanding. "Been trying to protect the alien children all this time, but it's been alone for so long that it lost its way." The images showed how the Guardian had attacked the human colonists because it perceived them as invaders. But when Boyer approached with innocence and kindness, she had triggered its original programming. Her pure heart had reminded it of its true purpose.
Oh.
The creature recognized Bora as a child in need of protection, So-Young explained. That's why it didn't hurt her. That's why it kept her safe all night. Hyanwu looked at his daughter with new understanding. "You knew, didn't you? You knew what it really was?" Biora nodded solemnly. "The sad cat showed me in my dreams. Misses its friends. It's been waiting for them to wake up, but it doesn't know how to help them." The holographic images began to fade, but the ruins continued to hum with energy. Somewhere in the jungle, the creature was watching them, waiting to see what the humans would do with this new knowledge. "We need to help it," Biora said simply. "It's been alone for too long." Sol Young was already studying the symbols on the pillars, trying to understand the alien technology. If we can figure out how this system works, maybe we can help the creature remember its true purpose. Maybe we can even help it find peace. As the search party prepared to return to the colony, none of them noticed the pale figure watching from the shadows. The creature had heard everything, and for the first time in centuries, it felt something other than loneliness and rage. It felt hope. For 3 days after the discovery at the ruins, Sol Young worked without rest. Her laboratory was filled with data from the ancient site, and she spent every waking hour trying to understand the alien technology. The symbols from the pillars covered every wall, and her computers ran constant analysis programs. "Any progress?" Yanwu asked, bringing her a cup of coffee. So Young looked up from her work, her eyes tired but excited. "I think I'm beginning to understand their language. It's not just writing, it's a form of emotional communication. The symbols respond to feelings as much as thoughts." "What does that mean?" "It means Biora was right. The creature isn't just protecting the ruins, it's trying to communicate with us. Every attack, every encounter, it's been trying to tell us something." Dayun entered the lab with her communication equipment. "The signals from the ruins are getting stronger every day. And there's something else. I think the creature is trying to respond to our radio transmissions." Yeah. She played a recording of strange sounds that had been coming from the jungle. They were deep, musical tones that seemed to follow a pattern. "It's trying to talk to us," Sa Young said with growing excitement. "Look at this." She showed them a translation program she had been working on. When she fed the creature's sounds into the computer along with the alien symbols, patterns began to emerge. The creature's name isn't White Death or anything like that. According to this translation, it calls itself something like Keeper of the Young or Guardian of Tomorrow. "Guardian of Tomorrow," Hyunwoo repeated. "That's a beautiful name. Look at this." Soyoung continued. "The creature has been sending the same message over and over. It's saying the children are sleeping. Help them wake up. So lonely, so tired." Hyunwoo felt his heart break a little. It's been asking for help all this time, and we thought it was trying to kill us. "We need to make contact," Soyoung said. "But we need Bora. She's the only one who has been able to communicate with it successfully." When they found Biora, she was in the garden behind their house, drawing again. This time, her picture showed the creatures surrounded by small figures that looked like children. "Biora, we need your help," Soyoung said, sitting down beside her. "We want to talk to your friend, the Guardian of Tomorrow." Biora's eyes lit up. "You know its real name?" "Yes. And we know it's not evil. It's been trying to protect the alien children for thousands of years. But it needs help. I can help." Biora said eagerly. "It talks to me in my dreams, not with words, but with feelings. It's so sad and so tired." That evening, they returned to the ruins. Soyoung had brought her translation equipment, and Dayun had set up a powerful radio transmitter. The plan was to use Biora as a bridge between human and alien communication. Ruins were glowing softly in the twilight, and the symbols pulsed with their steady rhythm. As they approached the central platform, they could feel the creature's presence in the jungle around them. "It's here," Biora whispered. "It's watching us." "Tell it we want to help," Soyoung said gently. Biora closed her eyes and stood very still. After a moment, she began to speak, but not in any human language. The sounds that came from her throat were similar to the creature's musical tones, but somehow different. More human. From the darkness of the jungle, an answer came. The creature's voice was deep and beautiful, like a song that had been sung for centuries. "What is it saying?" Yeonwoo asked. Biora opened her eyes and they were filled with tears. "It's saying thank you. So happy that someone finally understands. It's been alone for so long, it almost forgot how to hope." The creature emerged from the jungle, moving slowly and carefully. In the light of the ruins, it looked even more magnificent than before. Its white fur seemed to glow, and its amber eyes held depths of wisdom and sadness. "Ask it about the children," Soyoung said. "Ask it what they need." Biora spoke again in that strange musical language. The creature responded, and Biora listened carefully before translating. "It says the children are sleeping in the stones. Their minds are safe, but they need someone to sing them awake. The Guardian tried for so long, but it doesn't know the right songs anymore. So-young checked her scanner readings. The consciousness patterns are stored in the ruins computer system, but the awakening protocol requires specific harmonic frequencies. The creature has been trying to generate those frequencies, but it's been doing it wrong. Can we help? Heian-Wu asked. I think so, but we need to work together. The creature knows the old songs, but it needs our technology to amplify them correctly. Over the next several hours, they worked together in a way that none of them had ever experienced before. So-young's equipment analyzed the harmonic patterns in the ruins, while Di-Yun's radio transmitter boosted the signals. The creature provided the bass frequencies, its deep voice resonating through the ancient stones, and Biora served as the link between them all, translating not just words but emotions and intentions. She helped the creature understand what the humans were trying to do, and she helped the humans understand what the creature needed. As they worked, the ruins began to change. The symbols grew brighter, and new patterns appeared in the air above. The platform. The humming sound grew stronger, taking on a musical quality that was both alien and beautiful. It's working, So-young said, watching her readings climb. The system is responding. The creature's song grew more confident, more joyful. For the first time in centuries, it was fulfilling its true purpose. It was helping the children it had protected for so long. Suddenly, the air above the platform filled with light. Ghostly figures began to appear, translucent and shimmering. They were the alien children, their consciousness awakening after millennia of sleep. The children looked around in wonder, seeing the humans and their guardian together. They spoke in musical voices, and Biora translated their words. There. Saying thank you, she said, tears streaming down her face. They're saying they're not afraid anymore, because they know someone cares about them. The creature's joy was overwhelming. It had finally succeeded in its mission. Children were awake, and they were safe. But more than that, it was no longer alone. What happens now? Heian-Wu asked Bora, listened to the alien children's voices, then to the creature's response. They say they don't need to stay in the sleeping stones anymore. They can move on to wherever they're supposed to go next. But first, they want to thank their guardian for protecting them for so long. The ghostly children surrounded the creature, their translucent forms glowing with love and gratitude. The creature's amber eyes closed in peaceful joy as it felt their touch one last time. Then, slowly, the children began to fade. But their voices lingered in the air, singing a song of gratitude and farewell. When they were gone, the ruins fell silent. The symbols still glowed, but gently now, like a contented sigh. The creature stood alone on the platform, but it was no longer the mad, lonely guardian it had been. How do you feel? Bora asked it. The creature looked at her with eyes that were clear and peaceful. When it spoke, its voice was calm and gentle. It says it's free, Biora translated. For the first time in thousands of years, it's free to choose its own path. The creature approached Biora and lowered its great head. She reached out and touched its fur, feeling the deep contentment that radiated from it. What will you do now? She asked. The creature's answer made her smile. It says it wants to stay here with us. It wants to protect our children the way it protected the alien children. But this time, it wants to do it with love, not fear. As the group prepared to return to the colony, the creature walked beside them. It was no longer the White Death, the terror of the jungle. It was the guardian of tomorrow, protector of all children, and it had finally found its true family. 6 months had passed since the night at the ruins, and New Busan was a different place. The mining operations had been moved to a new location, far from the ancient sanctuary. The ruins themselves had been declared a protected site, maintained by a joint team of human scientists, and their newfound guardian Buar walked through the colony's main street, her small hand resting on the back of her massive companion. The guardian of tomorrow moved beside her with fluid grace, its white fur gleaming in the morning sun. Children who had once hidden in fear now ran up to greet them both. "Good morning, Guardian," called Janae, one of Bior's classmates. You taking us to the creek today? The guardian made a soft rumbling sound that the children had learned meant yes. Over the months, it had become their protector and guide, teaching them about the jungle and keeping them safe during their explorations. Remember to stay close to the guardian, Biora told the younger children. Knows where all the safe places are. The group of 12 children followed Biora and the guardian toward the jungle. Parents watched from their doorways, smiling and waving. The sight that had once filled them with terror now brought them peace and joy. Hyanwu stood with Soyoung and Taemin, watching the children disappear into the trees. I still can't believe how much has changed, he said. The guardian is happier than I've ever seen it, Soyoung replied. Having a purpose again, having children to protect. It's like it's come alive. Taemin nodded. The children are learning things about this world that we never could have taught them. The guardian knows every plant, every animal, every safe path through the jungle. At the creek, the children played in the shallow water while the guardian kept watch from the bank. Its amber eyes constantly scanned the forest, alert for any danger. But now it watched with love instead of fear, protecting instead of attacking. Bara sat beside the guardian, sketching the purple flowers that grew near the waterfall. Her drawings had become famous throughout the colony, showing the beauty and wonder of their alien world through the eyes of a child. Guardian, she said softly, do you miss the alien children? The guardian turned its great head toward her and made a complex series of sounds. Bora had become fluent in its musical language, able to understand even the most subtle emotions. You're happy they found peace, she translated to herself. But you're also happy to have new children to protect. The guardian touched its nose gently to her cheek, a gesture of affection that always made Biora smile. In the distance, they could hear the sound of a shuttle approaching. The guardian's ears perked up, and it rose to its feet, alert but not alarmed. That must be the inspection team, Biora said.
Daddy told me they were coming today.
The Terran Colonial Authority had finally sent a team to evaluate the new Busan colony. They had expected to find a failing settlement, plagued by dangerous wildlife and ready for evacuation. Instead, they were about to discover something extraordinary. Shuttle landed in the colony's main square, and 3 officials emerged. They were dressed in crisp uniforms and carried data tablets, looking very serious and official. I am Inspector Kim Minho, the lead official announced to the gathered colonists. We're here to evaluate the safety and viability of this settlement. Hyanwu stepped forward to greet them. Welcome to New Busan, Inspector. I think you'll find our colony is quite different from what your reports might suggest. Yes, about that, Inspector Kim said, consulting his tablet. We've received some very disturbing reports about attacks by a dangerous predator. 17 deaths over the past year. We're prepared to authorize immediate evacuation. There haven't been any attacks for 6 months, Hyanwu replied calmly. The situation has been resolved. Resolved how? Did you kill the creature? No, Inspector. We learned to communicate with it. Would you like to meet it? Inspector Kim looked skeptical. You're telling me you've tamed a wild predator? Not tamed, Soyoung interjected. Befriended. The creature was never truly wild. It was a guardian, created by an ancient alien civilization to protect children. The sound of laughter echoed from the direction of the jungle. The inspection team turned to see a group of children emerging from the trees, led by a small girl. Riding on the back of the largest white creature they had ever seen, the officials stepped back in shock, reaching for their weapons. But the children were laughing and playing, completely unafraid of the massive predator in their midst. This is impossible, Inspector Kim breathed. That creature is enormous. It could kill all of those children in seconds. It could, Hyanwu agreed, but it won't. It's their protector now. Biora slid down from the Guardian's back and approached the inspection team. The Guardian followed closely, its amber eyes fixed on the strangers. Hello, Biora said politely. I'm Biora, and this is my friend, the Guardian of Tomorrow. It's very nice to meet you. The Guardian lowered its head in what could only be described as a formal bow. Inspector Kim stared in amazement. It's greeting us, he said. The Guardian is very polite, Biora explained. It likes meeting new people, as long as they're not here to hurt anyone. Inspector Kim slowly approached the Guardian, his hand extended. The creature sniffed his palm gently, then made a soft sound that seemed welcoming. "Incredible," the inspector murmured. "In 30 years of colonial inspections, I've never seen anything like this." Over the next 3 days, the inspection team observed the daily life of New Busan. They watched as the Guardian led children on educational trips through the jungle, teaching them about the local ecosystem. They saw how the creature's presence had actually made the colony safer. It kept dangerous animals away from the settlement. They interviewed colonists who spoke of the Guardian with deep affection and respect. They studied So Young's research on the alien ruins and the breakthrough in interspecies communication. They observed the Guardian's intelligence and emotional depth. On their final day, Inspector Kim sat with Biora and the Guardian by the creek. The creature had allowed him to pet its fur, and he was amazed by how soft and warm it was. "Biora," he said, "how did you know the Guardian wasn't dangerous?" Biora thought for a moment, then smiled. It had sad eyes, not angry eyes. Sad eyes mean someone needs help, not someone who wants to hurt you. "And you weren't afraid?" "I was afraid at first, but then I realized it was more scared than I was. It had been alone for so long, it forgot how to be happy." Inspector Kim looked at the Guardian, who was watching a group of children play in the water. The creature's amber eyes were indeed full of contentment and joy. "What's your recommendation going to be?" Hyanwu asked as the inspection team prepared to leave. Inspector Kim smiled. "New Busan is going to be designated as a model colony. What you've accomplished here, learning to work with the native life instead of fighting it, this is the future of human colonization."
Ow.
As the shuttle prepared for departure, the entire colony gathered to see the officials off. The Guardian stood with the children, its white fur gleaming in the afternoon sun. Inspector Biora called out, "Will you tell other people about the Guardian?" "I will," Inspector Kim promised. "I'll tell them about the colony where humans and aliens learn to be family." As the shuttle disappeared into the sky, Bara looked up at the Guardian. "Are you happy?" she asked. The Guardian's response was a deep, musical sound that resonated with pure joy. It touched its nose to Biora's forehead, then settled down beside her. The sun was setting over New Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Children played in the streets, their laughter echoing through the colony. Parents worked in their gardens, secure in the knowledge that their children were safe. And at the edge of the settlement, where the jungle met civilization, a little girl and her guardian watched over it all. The creature that had once been feared, as the White Death, was now beloved as the guardian of tomorrow, protector of all children, keeper of hope. In the distance, the ancient ruins glowed softly in the twilight, a reminder of the bond between species that transcended fear and misunderstanding. The alien children who had once slept in the stones were at peace, knowing their guardian had found a new purpose and a new family. Bora leaned against the guardian's warm side, feeling perfectly safe and completely loved.
Ow.
Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new friends to meet, and new wonders to discover. But tonight, she was content to sit with her guardian and watch the stars peer in the alien sky. The creature that everyone had feared was now the heart of their community. And it all began with a lost girl who chose to see love instead of fear, hope instead of terror, and a lonely guardian instead of a monster. The White Death was gone forever. In its place stood the guardian of tomorrow, protector of children, keeper of dreams, and proof that even the most fearsome creatures could become family when shown the simple power of human compassion.